Welcome everyone back to another episode of What the Tech. And this is again season two. I'm your host here, Onyeka from Persive IT. And season two is really more about conversations regarding AI and the uncertainty that people walk through relative to their journey with AI. And for episode two today, I have an amazing guest here, Adam. And Adam, please, if you don't mind introducing yourself and what you do to our audience.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. My name is Adam Gunnett. I am the Vice President of Business Intelligence and Strategy for Busy Beaver Building Centers. Those not familiar with Busy Beaver, we've been around since 1962. We're a regional home improvement chain located out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and serving 19 locations across Western PA, Eastern Ohio, and West Virginia. So think of your Home Depot or Lowe's. We're just a smaller neighborhood version of that.
Nice. Thank you for mentioning that because I know it's definitely important for people to understand who you work for and what you do. And for your case, Adam, with regards to the conversation about I know that you've had the experience of being marketing, like working in marketing, as well as also working in AI, both relatively at the same time. That's a very interesting combination. My question to you is what's the most interesting way you've seen AI show up on both sides of the pond?
Yeah, so, I think a lot of times from the outside, if you look at, traditional AI technology and you think of marketing, you think they're kind of polar opposites. You think of IT, you think of kind of, the nerdy guy. Before
Right.
we got started here, I removed
Star
some
Wars?
Star Wars stuff. Yeah. But, I think data really is your source of truth. So when you're
Mhm.
making marketing decisions, data and technology are key. So, at different organizations I've worked with or different peer companies, the marketing department and the IT business intelligence departments need to work together.
Right.
AI is really, in both those, sectors, a lot of, a lot of use case. You think
Mhm.
with, copy for marketing, I think mostly everyone is using AI to help produce copy. I
Right.
think images and mock-ups, it can do, a lot of image generation. Maybe not stuff that you would publish or trademark, but it helps with brainstorming.
Yes.
And then with, regular IT, a lot of coding can be done using AI now. So definitely two great areas for AI. And, even though it seems like an unnatural combo to have marketing and IT together, it actually kind of makes sense. And in my role now as vice president, I'm overseeing the marketing department again. So that's
Okay.
something I did in my past, and with this recent promotion, that department's falling under my direct supervision again.
Okay. So it's all that makes sense. And I'm glad you mentioned that in terms of you seeing the way to combine the two roles and what you're learning from both of them relative to AI. And I would even say this one, Adam. So what was your biggest aha moment, like the eureka light bulb moment when it comes to AI?
So, I think I had my preconceived notions on users who would adopt AI. So again, I think most people who know me would, have assumed that I was kind of on the AI train early, which I was. But when we deployed it out to our organization,
Mhm.
I had the idea like, okay, our college kids, our part-time, high school kids are going to be the people that really use some of the AI apps we have. But
Oh,
what
okay.
actually happened was some of our, older aged employees
Mhm.
adapted it at a much quicker rate. And then
Okay.
again, one of the tools that we developed was for salesmanship.
Mhm.
So you would think our most experienced salesman would be like, I don't need that tool. I know everything. But
Right.
they also were asking it more difficult questions and getting to their answers much quicker. So again, that was like aha in the fact that like I had this preconceived notion that AI was going to help us in this one area, but the real
Mhm.
world experience was different. So I guess the aha moment was it was a learning experience for me and to not
Right.
basically just make business decisions off of, you know, preconceived notions or gut feelings. You actually have to do some real world testing.
No, that makes sense, Adam. And I think even I'm glad you even offered the range, as in the intern who comes to help work at like your establishment versus someone who's a lot more seasoned, because they'll have different experiences. And was it harder than you expected, or was it kind of about the same or way easier? Because I know you talked about the different people. Now, in
Mhm.
terms of the effort to bring people on board, guide them through it, and yeah.
I still think the technical lift really was pretty easy, easier than I thought. You know, when I first start, exploring, what AI could do, probably 2 or 3 years ago, it was kind of like, yeah, do I think that we're going to have an employee facing app at our stores and how much lift and how much money would this cost? It actually was a lot easier. The difficult part is just the change management, getting
Ah,
people to be like, you know, ask the app first, like,
right.
just get into that habit. So we've actually have now made it more of our culture and kind of just hammering it in that you need to use this app, you need to use this app.
Okay.
Like it will make everything quicker, even if you already know the answer. And something that just made me realize not AI, but a good use of technology. I
Right.
know how to get home and I use Waze,
Mm.
a lot of times. Waze told me to get off at a certain exit. And I said, no, I'm not going to get off at that exit. And the next thing you know, it takes me an extra hour to get home. So I
Ah,
should have just listened to Waze.
efficiency, right. Yeah,
Right.
that and that's actually a good point because it even goes into this next point of you yourself, from what it sounds like, you're definitely helping lead the charge at your organization relative to AI, or at least you're part of that team. And now, how does it feel to be leading the charge, or at least be involved in it? And has that changed your leadership style relative to what you're now having to bring into the organization because of AI?
So I think my whole leadership style and mentality is, how can I make our employees more efficient
Hmm.
at doing what they do best? So, I think in previous attempts, it was like, how can technology or AI save us money? But it's how to make people more effective at what they're good at already.
Okay.
So, basically using AI and gearing it towards a particular employee or task so that they can be more efficient in what they do and let them, you know, drive where they're comfortable. So that we have a number of different AI tools that we use at our headquarters. The one I've been talking about the most is the one that we use in our front lines. But basically, as I've gotten involved in other parts of the business, it's
Hmm.
how can technology, how can AI make all parts of the business, more effective. So not just IT, not just marketing, how can it make human resources? How can it make operations? How can it
Ah,
make accounting?
okay.
I look to basically transform the way we do operate our business and AI makes that, more possible. It makes me more efficient so then I can also help make other leaders more efficient.
Exactly. Yeah, that's good that you do see the efficiency, not a hack, but it's to actually optimize because you can co-author with it depending on your perspective. And even to that point, are you finding that there's a unification in terms of the AI tools being used? For instance, an organization might have one where someone might use ChatGPT, the other person might use Copilot, a third could use a different tool versus where it says, okay, all of us are using this one tool and we keep interacting with it to help it to evolve and grow to understand our business.
Yeah, so I think the natural desire for everyone is to want one tool to do everything, but in reality, that isn't, the case. We're a Microsoft shop, so obviously Copilot has its advantages
Right, right.
so that, we can do things to protect our data, we can license it, we can have tighter control over it. You've seen that Microsoft has seen that people like the Chat GPT model, so now they actually kind of have that in the
Right.
Copilot model. So, like the natural reactions, have everyone use one solution and try to unify it in that. But I think what's going to continue to happen is existing products are going to develop their own AI components. So whether it is, you know, when I'm managing my antivirus, there's now a, AI component to kind
Yes,
of,
for that.
yeah, there's an AI component for networking, whether it's purchasing and replenishment, there's AI tools for that. So I still think that you're going to see, specialization in AI tools. And it's kind of, there's a need for that. And then there's also a little bit of the AI hype, so kind of like the
Right.
.com bubble. I think you're going to
Everyone
see a
was
lot. I think you're going to see a lot of AI companies that come out and then they might not be here in a couple of years. So
right.
it is an interesting landscape to navigate.
No, that is true. And even given with what you said about the tools, like, the tools are they're not just there to look shiny, they're there to achieve an objective. So for even you, Adam, what are maybe two or three things on your AI wish list that you wish you could get done at the company? Is it like dealing with documents? Is it automating this or changing that?
Yeah. So, like you said, some things are exciting and fun. I think when I go out to a store and see a real world application of,
Hmm.
being able to ask a simple plain language question and I have AI tell me what we have in stock and, what hour it is. And if we don't have it in stock, what other stores carry it. That's cool and exciting. And, that's where we've made progress. The areas I haven't made progress, and if, like you said, if I could wave a magic wand, it would
Yeah.
be some of those accounting processes because
Oh, okay.
I feel like to effectively use AI, you you have to have a very solidified manual process and you have to understand the process. So
Oh,
if you throw AI at a bad process, you're going to just have an expensive bad process. So
yes.
with accounting, I personally despise accounting. Like, I probably could manage my own money better. So, like, if I could wave a wand, I know AI could definitely help a lot of those areas. And, even non AI things, which is process
Right.
automation, has been going on in accounting for years. It's
Hmm.
just not my favorite area of the business to deal with. Just
Right.
so that is an area that I think that we will, get some leaders in that department that will, ask for AI solutions and we
Mhm.
will, work to find the best solutions to make their job more efficient.
Yeah, that's really good because I know I love what you said there, Adam, that if you throw AI at a bad process, you just have an expensive bad process. And it's important to know when is the right time to bring AI into that business conversation, because that I think is definitely a skill that a lot more people are going to need. And
Hmm.
even even going back to the skills part of things for the teams that you lead, what's one thing people are asking you for relative to what they wish AI could do better? As in the people who've interacted with the tool, what's one thing they keep giving you feedback about?
Yeah, well, I'll answer the question I thought you were going to ask first. And it's people, where can they have AI? And like you said,
Mhm.
it's like a process that probably doesn't work great today. And maybe the actual process needs to be figured out analog, but they're just like, they hear about AI making everything more efficient. And it's like, can you make my store visit, you know,
Right.
form, did you have AI do it? And it's like, well, no, because your store visit form and process maybe needs refined and tweaked a little bit. But for some of No, the AI asks for like the existing applications. It's basically, you know, the users want the AI to know more about our business and our environment and
Hmm.
some of our business constraints. And there are different ways that that can be accomplished, but typically more guardrails and
Right.
definitions need to be put in place. So, the things that they are asking are achievable and good. It's just a matter of having the resources either internally to make
Hmm.
sure that those things are done or having a good AI partner who is willing to take feedback and make adjustments. And we're lucky, in a number of the AI solutions we're working with, they're very they're more of a startup like company,
Right.
so they are very collaborative and they take feedback. And sometimes where the disconnect can be is when you have an engineer, an AI programmer, they think black and white very logically. And then you have
Right.
like a sales associate asking, a question. They don't
Oh,
understand maybe the business demands. So
right.
that's where it's good to have open dialogue
Mhm.
and bring in business stakeholders into the conversation that can help, your developers understand why, end users are asking this request.
No, I think that's a good point there because even what you said with the language, there's a technical speak and then there's business speak, and how do you align that to still lead to something that's beneficial for both parties? And have you found it's harder than you expected to help with the change management element of introducing AI into your workforce?
Yeah, like I said, it is a little bit harder and it's just a matter, I think, of repetition and
That's a good one, actually.
training and then having feedback. One of the things that, if I could go back in time would be to like go ask our employees like, where do you need the most assistance? What are your
Ah,
biggest problems? What are your most, what are your biggest, you know areas of work that you wish you didn't have to do? I have a pretty good understanding of our employees and, I know what they do on day to day and I'm very well versed in technology. So I saw this solution, this solution, this solution. Hey, this will work for this, work for that.
mhm,
Um, and, like I said, it's probably taken longer to get buy-in. So maybe if I would have started the other way around,
right.
uh, I probably would have got better buy-in from the beginning. So, that would be kind of like a lesson learned. So for people who haven't deployed AI, I do recommend seeing what your peer companies and others in your like businesses are using. And
Mhm,
because that's a path to be successful because you can see that it's worked elsewhere. But I do
right.
think you should start with the day-to-day people and see what their challenges are, because you could go spending all this money or bringing in the technology, and they're like, "Oh, we don't mind doing
Need
that," or "That's not a problem for us," and you just brought in this solution, so
Yeah, that makes sense. And because I love the fact you have that perspective that the feedback also helps with the transitioning. So they know it's incoming. They know you've heard their voice. So when it actually shows up as in the tool you introduce, it now has a lot more impact because it's not like a command culture. It's more we're involved in this journey together. So that's really good perspective actually. And to that point, Adam, it's still the on your journey with AI, because you're still on the journey as much as you've done so many different things. What do you call your North Star relative to AI? Like what guides how you navigate either what you want to explore in AI or what you feel is needed?
I think it's a combination of kind of what I was talking about previously. Seeing what others in, our industry are doing. So seeing
Mm,
what, your big retailers are doing. So,
mhm.
you think of your cutting edge retailers typically in retail. I typically like to see, Target, Walgreens,
Okay.
that, they're usually kind of forward thinking.
Right.
Obviously, a lot of times like fashion and apparel stores can be typically because they make a
Hmm.
lot more money and they have like a younger, more affluent like
Right.
staff. But again, what they do probably doesn't necessarily translate well into what we're doing at home improvement. So you kind of take a little bit of what they do, take a little bit of what like other independent home improvement people are doing,
Right.
and then
Different
take,
elements.
like I said, and then take that element of what do my associates actually want from me. So
Mhm.
that like is my North Star by combining all of those kind of elements together.
That that makes sense because it's if I'm understanding you correctly, it's more like it's you're cooking a recipe that's unique to your organization, and the elements you can find from different people who are that innovative. You'll actually say, oh, this little way they did this is interesting, and then you'll slowly try to bring it together if you can.
Yeah, because like I said, if I follow what some of the tech forward companies are going to be doing, it might not necessarily work out well for us. But if
Right.
I, go at the same rate of, my industry, I would still probably be having fax machines at some of my stores. I have to kind of balance it.
Right. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And Adam, for your the teams you lead and whenever you had the co-pilot or AI related training for them relative to their jobs, do they lean on a prompt library or was it more of they just had the training and everyone slowly started to learn the prompts that work best for what they do?
So the solution that we're actually have the most buy-in and use is actually for our frontline employees. So it's
Oh, okay.
actually an app called Fast Query.
Mhm.
And so, like you said, we have there's training videos with example prompts that, like these are the type of question you should ask. Like, so do we carry any, organic fertilizer? And
Mhm.
all of a sudden it will list all the different types of fertilizer we have that don't have any sort of like pesticides in it, have the
Right.
stock. Okay. And then, can then what other products go with this. So
Okay.
so we kind of have those videos that show some example prompts. We
Mhm.
also then have like a users group in one of our communication platforms where basically people can go in there and ask questions to other associates, like
Mhm.
about how to use the app or different things they've done in the app that they never thought to ask the app. So it's
Right.
kind of makes it fun that, I asked this question about decking and it knew the answer. Like I never would have thought that an app would ever know this. And then
Right.
having those, we actually call them a Q&A and feedback session. So rather than it
Hmm.
being a training that we have, we basically every 2 weeks we're having a call with store associates, one of the people from Fast Query and
Right.
myself and one of my team members, and we show some examples of prompts that you can do in the app. We ask questions and then we say, okay, what type of features, do you think we should build into this app? So it's
Right.
more of that mutual kind of collaborative effort that's helping get, better adoption rate. So we actually just start doing that 4 weeks ago and we've seen a
Oh,
two with those sessions. So
right.
like basically we averaged about 2 to 3 users per our 19 stores from
Oh,
March
okay.
until October. We
Mhm.
are now averaging 8 users a store. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
so having that feedback in that open
Right.
training and communication, we have exponentially increased our adoption rate. So I think
Oh,
having that open forum is huge. So I wish I would have started doing this months ago. It seems like an easy answer now that we're doing it. And it's like, why weren't we doing this weeks ago? So,
right.
you know,
Right.
and I think having those open sessions. And if some weeks we're on there and it's 15 minutes and everyone gets off and doesn't have any questions and they're just hearing about the new feature,
Right. Right.
it's a short meeting. or if it's the full 45 minutes and people are asking questions, I think
Mhm.
people are more prone to ask questions with that open environment rather than to reach out to me or my team or to send
Right.
an email to the fast query support. So having
Right.
that open forum keeps it more relaxed.
That that's a really good strategy, and I do like the fact you're having it every 2 weeks. It's not too long, but then it's also not too short, and there's enough time to adapt and learn. And I also think the good part of that is the community element there. So people are
Mhm.
getting to see the innovation and that they can participate and maybe even talk to each other about this prompt and that prompt. So that, yeah, that's a really good one actually. I commend you for it, especially because you're also seeing its impact with regards to the number of people who are now adopting it across the whole entire like all your stores essentially.
Yeah, and like I said, I think people are almost afraid to like ask about a stupid question or like they're like
So
they
it's like
want they're
school.
yeah, so they're embarrassed that they don't know how to use AI. So we just every week we start out with like showing the basics. Like, so you
That's a
could
good
pull
point.
someone off the street
Right.
who's never saw AI before and they
Right.
would be able to do it. And we just cover that. It takes 5 minutes. We just so this is a prompt, this is the prompt, this is the prompt. If you know, hey, if you've seen this a million times, just don't pay
Right.
attention. Like we have new hires every week and we kind of use that as like, because maybe if there was a general manager
Mhm.
who probably should have known this, but now he's too afraid to ask,
Right.
since we're doing it every week or every
Right.
2 weeks and we're starting the session with that basic 101, it has really
Uh,
opened up the door where like people are now getting into it. So,
that that makes sense, Adam, and I do like that compare like the whole comparison with school because it's true. No one wants to ask the dumb, stupid question, but
right.
if you have the courage to ask, you'll then unlock the whole enter into that whole world of knowledge. So that's a good tip.
And then also having, like I said, that peer group. So
Yes, the
maybe if
peer
they
group.
don't ask, so if they don't want to ask the teacher, they can ask a fellow student. So it,
Right.
right.
School all over again. Oh man, that's funny. And so this has really been great. And my second last question to you, Adam, is that you've given a lot of advice, a lot of really good advice as to how your AI journey has really been rich and interesting and also community oriented aspect of it. What is one other piece of advice you could give to another leader who's trying to navigate this that same journey?
Yeah. So I would say to get involved in some sort of peer group or
Mm,
organization uh, so that you can get feedback from others. So I'm involved in a number of different ones. So I'm from Pittsburgh. So
mhm.
there's a Pittsburgh, Technology Council.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm part of that. And I have learned a lot and grown a lot from that because there are, people in there that might be, an IT manager at a local school district. Okay. There
Right.
might be the CIO of PNC Bank and the CIO of Dollar Bank and every insurance company and all the big
Right.
companies that we have based out of Pittsburgh that are, guys with thousands of team members under them. And then
Mhm.
there's other companies where, it might be a one man shop.
Sure.
And we get together, semi regularly, usually quarterly. Uh, and it's good to meet on Zoom and in person. And I can learn from those big banks. I can learn from the small companies. And again,
Right.
it's not a salesperson trying to sell you anything. So, that's a great learning opportunity. And then I'm involved in another peer group called the NHPA. It stands for the North American Hardware Retail Paint Association. So
Oh,
basically,
okay.
other independent home improvement centers, other independent hardware stores, other
Right.
independent paint stores. So they're very familiar with, our kind of customers. In our industry, there's basically only like 3 point of sale ERP systems. So, a lot of times if I need help with, my point of sale system, I can't
Mhm.
really go on Google and find the answer.
Oh, it's that
But
niche. Okay.
yeah, but I have now 3 or 4 peers that run the same exact system as me, so I can ask them questions, and then
Right.
that's where I learn about, "Hey, they're using this AI technology," or, "Hey, this is how they've used technology to impact other parts of the business." So
Right.
I would
Right.
say getting involved in peer groups like that is what has allowed me to grow from an IT system specialist in 2014 to then a director of IT, to then a director of marketing, to
Oh, wow.
then a director of business intelligence and IT, and
Right.
now to a vice president position. A lot of my peers helped me grow as a leader and realize that what we do with technology can impact our entire business. If there's someone out there listening to this that, you know, uh, hasn't gotten involved in a peer group, and a lot of them are either free or very low cost, it is
Mhm.
worth every penny, because not only have I learned about technology and solutions, I learned very valuable people and soft skills that I probably wouldn't have picked up on my own. So
Oh, that is really good, and I'm happy you really got that rich in experience because of what it's even done for your career, separate from the technical knowledge it's given you for what you actually do. And my last question was going to be this one, pretty easy one. It's more what's your favorite AI prompt? And like, or maybe it's even something you do with regards to using AI, either that's personal or professional, but if you feel free to share it with the audience.
so I like making uh AI, like Pixar style beavers of people. Like, for
Really?
example, I might take a picture of us on the podcast here
Right,
and then make an AI rendering of beavers that might look similar to us
right.
on the podcast. And
That's funny.
if sometimes, sometimes it can be very good at just going based off of an image, and then
Right.
sometimes you have to prompt it more and more. And I'm usually very good at getting it to be accurate, but it's kind of like one of those things like, hey, if I pass away, like clear my search history type of things. Like
Right. Keep the
some of the
secret
time
secret.
the prompts I say to get it look like someone I know. Like, if they knew what I prompted AI to get it to look like them, they probably wouldn't be my friend anymore. So that probably is what I get the most entertainment out of, is those type of prompts.
That's funny. I didn't see AI in beavers, but there you go. That actually is a combination.
Yeah.
And, and Adam, sincerely, thank you so much for everything you've shared with this. Both your prompt there and also just everything you've gone through on the journey. I really am glad that you found that AI, it's not so uncertain in that you're learning and discovering, and there's still the wonders you can find in also how you're teaching the people at your organization how to grow together with it.
This has been, a pleasure. I think we covered a lot of topics. It's a lot of fun, very good conversation. It went very quickly.
Yeah, honestly, that's what happens when we're like getting into the whole conversation. And I really do appreciate your candid thoughts. And to our viewers out there, please tune in for another episode. We'll get to carry on this conversation with AI and uncertainty and also how to lead from there, as you've seen here. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.